somewhat of like the basics of the MVC framework, right? The 7 RESTful routes, how it maps to the 4 CRUD actions, and why is it that there are 4 sort of letters for CRUD, but there are 7 RESTful routes. Where's the extra 3 coming from?
Are you like asking us like for an answer?
Yes, but I will just continue talking and explain it, unless someone really wants to answer it.
Well, one of them is that we have like 2 show routes, right? We show all of them and then we show each individual.
That's right. In the read, we have 2. That's exactly correct. And
There's 2?
yes, there update. There's 2. Why update? There's 2.
Because updating all or updating.
Okay, I see where you're going. Right. There's the patch and the put.
Yeah.
Right. Those are HTTP verbs. But in terms of the RESTful routing, like the route itself,
Show first.
you need to give the user the form so they can send the input, and then you need the route to actually handle the input for the database. And that's going to be the same with the create action. So you have 2 routes for sort of the read, and that's like the index and the show, index being all, show being like the singular in more granular detail. Then you have 2 for the create, right? The get route for the form, and then the actual post route that does the creation. You have the same and similar for the update, and that is the get route for the form, and then the patch route for like the actual updating of the database, and then finally deletes delete, right? We kind of just talked about that. That will make way more sense when we actually build it, and then we actually do it live. So, cool. Great. Do you guys want to build an app, or was there a question right before? Okay, great. What type of app do you want to build? I just need a one-to-many relationship. Things that we have built in the past that we'll never do again, that we did in Ali's class, is kids and parties, for reasons I will not get into.
A toaster has many Pop-Tarts.
But does a Pop-Tart belong to a toaster, though? Ooh. That's like, yeah, that's like a definite one user.
Can we do like more of a real world?
We can. So, what would you like to build?
What do you mean? I'm building a Pop-Tart simulator.
What would you like to build?
I don't know, like maybe just like a tweet and user? Does that work? No.
Well, what's the relationship between tweet and user?
User has many tweets.
And tweet
Has one user.
belongs to a user, right? Has one is technically correct, but has one is actually another separate relationship. So that's why I'm kind of want you to use that like belongs to. Okay? Cool. Are you guys cool with that, or do you guys want to do anything else that also models the real world? All right, it's a bit ambitious, but we will try to build the basics of Twitter in an hour. All right.
Yes.
Good luck. So I'm going to just build this app like normal. Boop, 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 boop. I'm just going to cd into this brand new folder I made, and I'm just going to Cornel. Remember, that's the gem. I'm going to use new as the command, and I'm just going to use, I don't know, Twitter's kind of copyrighted, and I don't want to.
I'm a bird.
I feel like.
What about not Twitter? Not Twitter.
Okay.
Yes.
Not Twitter. Okay. 2 T's, or are we going to like spice it up and just.
No Twitter, maybe?
No Twitter? No Twitter's fine. Cool. Ready? Boop. Here we go. So it's just, again, just going to generate all those files and that skeleton for us. So I'm going to cd right into no, not Twitter. And I don't want to make the same mistake I did last time and try to run everything without bundling, which was embarrassing. So I'm going to make sure I bundle install. I think it's going to break again. Oh, nope. It is going to break on the that SQL light gem, the SQL light gem. So I'm just going to fix that real quick. Do you guys remember what I was talking about?
Yeah.
I'm just going to also add the comma in there. Bloop. SQLite bloop. And this, I think, was one. It doesn't really use that, but I just know that that worked. It uses like 131 or something. Let's find out. Oh, yeah. All right, great. So we've got that all set up. Now we need to do what with our application? Well, yeah, we need to actually make this database, right? So there's 2 parts to that. The first part is I need the model, and the second part is I need to create this migration. So do I want to build it from scratch?
No.
No, right? So I'm just going to use this Cornel model, and that's going to generate some baseline code for the model. And what are our two models? What do we have? Right, so I'm just going to put user, and then and user, and oof, man, this one's dicey.
Call maybe,
Ooh.
or like, not a tweet.
Not tweet?
Yeah.
Sure. Sure. Not in love with that, but
No tweet.
no tweet. Should I do it like this? Or should I?
Yeah, because it needs to match.
Which one? Which one is it?
I don't know.
We getting spicy and dicey in here? I think it's this. I could be wrong. If we run into an error, we'll figure it out. All right, boop, boop, boop. Great. So remember, you can see exactly what it builds, and it generates the template of like a model code that inherits from active record base, and then it also builds that migration for us. So let's take a look at the migration, and let's add some important things in here. And so what are my attributes of my users table?
Name.
Right, classic. Anything else? Ooh, sure. Handle.
Like, it's your app.
Yeah, it's like, for example,
It's username.
like you see me as Evans, but like on my other Slack channels, I'm Wangtron. So very, very cool. Great. Let's talk about these definitely not tweets. TM. What are the attributes of tweet?
Likes.
Probably like okay, sure, likes, which is a number, right? Integer, right? And these tweets have likes, which is just kind of number, right? But we all know.
Read content.
User ID.
Okay, so let's do this, right? It definitely needs some sort of content, right? And that is like, what is this person actually saying?
Would that be
Let's get rid of likes, actually.
text instead of a string
It can be.
for the table? I don't know. I mean, like.
It can be. Let's use string for now because I don't want to dive too much into like active record and migration. So we'll talk offline about that. And so great. So we have the string for content, and then somebody said something about like a user ID. What is that, and why do we need it? Cool. You need the foreign key to get access to the thing. Is everyone cool with that?
Yeah, boy.
Yeah. Tashawn plus plus, right? Integer user ID. Cool. And so now that that is done, let's run those migrations. Boop, boop. Okay. Oops, embarrassing. That's also embarrassing. Let's find out what is happening. Break DB migration. Well, let's check the.
It should be migrated.
That would make a lot of sense. Oof, wow, bless up. That's a good sign. We can always check our schema and see, wow, look at this. So powerful. So let's get inside. Oh, man. I was going to make some. I should make a pull request of this so that it starts with pry. I think it was like task console. Let's say pry.start, and there needs to be a do and probably an end. Does that sound right? Let's try it. Break console. Bless up to Lord Gaines. Great. That was a shot in the dark from yesterday. Cool. So now we need to actually make some stuff, right? So what should we start with? Should we start with the user or should we start with a tweet? Why user? Yeah, because a tweet can't really exist without a user. So let's make one. Boop, boop, boop. User, right? Does anyone want to be a user in this like obviously unique idea of an application that is very applicable to the real world?
Yes, but only if you call me not Simon.
Sure, right?
Simon didn't say.
All right. Great. And then what is your actual handle though?
I think it would be.
Boop.
I don't know. That should be your hand.
Okay, great. I don't know. Very good.
Oh, nice.
I'll take it. Anyone else?
Perfect. That's I don't know. Who's Junior?
Ooh, okay. Okay, so I'm gonna get this right.
Hey.
Wow. Wow.
How did you even know my name? I don't think I ever said it.
So I'm what you would describe as a teacher, and I look at the Slack channel.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Plus, we have that Red Bull connection now.
Exactly.
It's more,
Forever connected.
except I took your advice.
Me too.
The synergy. So what's the handle here? Does gives you wings or?
I have wings.
Well, I mean Red Bull, obviously.
Oh, that's funny. Okay.
Let's just put wings, right?
I like
Wings are cool,
wings.
powerful. I think we only really kind of need two. And so, Simon, would you like to make a tweet?
Yes.
Great.
Very much so.
I kind of forgot.
It's a no.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Wow, embarrassing.
Nice.
Wow, we could have got sued right there. Okay, cool. By default, I started typing name. That's terrible. Content. And so what do you want to tweet? Remember, this particular application only limited to like 5 characters, so no big deal. Just keep that short and sweet.
Ain't no tweet.
Sure. Ain't no tweet like a no tweet party, because a no tweet party, don't stop, right?
Yeah.
And then the user ID. Now the user ID is kind of tricky, right? Like let's say I had a ton in my database. It's like I have to like hard code this. But luckily for us, we've only made 2. And Simon didn't say, I don't know, is actually user 1. Okay? And wings, what would you like to not tweet about? All right.
That's all I got to say today.
All right, smiley face, and this is obviously user 2. I think this is just enough seed data for us to kind of get started. So we're going to do the all-American thing, right? Just kidding. And we're going to start our server. So now that the server's up, the first thing I kind of really want to do is absolutely just make sure I test out this sort of get route. So if I go to my local host, 1993, I will see my get route, and that's good to go. Now, I don't actually have sort of any other route in here. So it doesn't really matter what I type in here, my app's not going to work as I kind of want it to or intended to. So what should we do now?
I have a short question, which is when you create stuff in the rig console with Pride, does it not disappear when you're done?
No, it does not.
That seeds your database?
Yeah, so the, yeah.
It's create. Makes sense.
Mhm.
Cool.
Remember, we're using the database to be able to persist data.
Yeah.
So-
I forgot about that bit. Cool.
How can I add additional routes? What's sort of like the plan here?
You do some more bits.
I can do some more gets, but where? Cornel can do it for us, but what do we want Cornel to do? Add things to our controller. But should we put it in the application controller?
Yeah, add more bit, right?
The no tweet controller.
That's right. So the idea is that like the application controller controls the entire application. As I start to add more models, I want to sort of separate them and divide them, exactly like the shoes, exactly like other non-real world applications that we've built, and I want to kind of separate those concerns. So I'm going to create its own controller to kind of handle all its own unique routes so that nothing kind of bleeds into each other. Remember, everything's going to be named sort of index and show in terms of the RESTful convention. So if I separate them out, they're going to have their own folder and their own controller.
Sorry. I
Yeah, no,
forgot
please.
to do this, so you're not gonna put the other debts in the application controller one, you're gonna make another controller.
That is exactly correct. I'm going to make my own controller if a model has its own views. That will make more sense as we start to get into models that don't need views. And it's okay. I understand exactly where this question is coming from, and that is the labs sort of make you hard code the routes, everything in your application controller, and that's okay because it will work. But what I want to do in lecture is sort of
Just to actually do separate
Mhm.
when they have it. Okay, cool.
Great. So we have Cornel that can help us with that. So I'm just going to bang out of this. Okay. And then I'm going to use Cornel, and I'm going to do what? If we don't know, what can we do? We can always look it up, right? But here I just happen to remember, like a mouse, because we did it yesterday. Right? I can do Cornel controller in the same way that I did Cornel model, and then I just put the name of the controller, and the controller is going to be for what? We can have one for a user, and then we can also have one for
Would it be
a
singular?
no tweet. It will auto capitalize. It'll auto pluralize. So I put user here. Ooh, I just want to make sure it's working.
Oh.
And then it does, what's that? Ooh,
Oh.
bless up to pluralize. So powerful, I know. So if I just put that, it'll do it for me. Magic. So, great. So I have now a no tweets controller and a users controller that's basically completely built out. I'm going to talk through all of them super fast.
Oh, wow.
But before I make that same embarrassing mistake, right? Oh, wow. Ooh, it put it in there when I used the generate.
Oh.
Ooh, wow. It's fancy. Great. So in the same way that we talked about, like, what should we kind of create first? We talked about creating which one, the user or the tweet first? Which one should have come first? User, right? Because the tweet has to belong to a user. What we did not do is test those relationships. So if I have a user, right, let's just find one, right? User.find one, and that gives me, I don't know, Simon, I didn't say. So I can have S is equal to that user.find and passing it in that one. So now I have access and I have a reference to that object. So if I'm a user, I should be able to do what? I should be able to see all my tweets, right? So what does that look like?
Not tweets.
Not tweets, right? But what do you think will happen? Should I see a list of all of my definitely not tweets?
Yeah. I hope so.
Did we establish those relationships? Right. And so it's not about memorizing, right? If you test your code, if you're like, this is what should be happening, if you go in, you'll kind of catch all the things that you need. So it's not about memorizing, like, first I'm going to migrate, and then I have to do the relationships and, like, build sort of this, like, step-by-step. It will come with time and sort of like what that workflow and process is. But if you test everything, what should be happening, then you'll basically wind up catching and encompassing everything. Question? Okay. So what do I need to do in order to build this method on that model? Right. Inside the model folder, right, in the particular model, I need to establish those relationships, like a mod1 sort of active record relationships. So inside the model, we have the user, and the user, in terms of the relationship with that no tweet, is what? A has many or belongs to? Has many, and that is no tweets. Is it no tweets or no tweet?
No tweets.
Yes, the S, right? It just reads like good English, right? If you has many, actually that didn't sound very good. Has many indicates potentially more than one, right? Ooh, that shot me in the foot. And then for the no tweet, it should what? It should also has many users or belong a user. Users, just the one, right? And that makes sense. So can anyone just briefly explain sort of like this belongs to, and in terms of like the foreign key, what is happening under the hood? What is belongs to doing? That was a very vague question, I understand. I was just trying to like see if anyone wanted to like kind of take a weird stab at it. Yeah.
It's a macro to establish the relationship between the two classes.
Yeah. Right, so this is syntactical sugar in the same way that a long time ago you did one of these moves. Remember that? Ugh, wow, get out of here. I'm just kidding. Active record, bless up to active record, does that for you. But remember that belongs to user is simply going to be looking through all the users where the user ID in each of the users right, matches the user ID inside my noTweet object. And that's really what it's doing. It's also building a couple other extra methods for you, but that's what it's doing under the hood. So now that we've established these relationships and I actually saved the files, that would have been bad. I go back into my console, and now I should be able to do the same thing I did before. I can go to Simon, and I can check Simon's definitely not tweets. Okay? That is correct. That is not correct.
No, I mean you're supposed to edit it.
Oh, yeah. That's what it's doing. Oof. Wow. Did you see that? Did you mean? Wow. So good. So good. I have to redo this. And then finally, there it is. Powerful. Did everyone understand that? Just a quick thumbs up, because that is something you should be able to debug. Awesome, great. So let's check the same and opposite relationship, and that is if I take this noTweet, let's do, is this the actual object? Can I call the object methods on this return value?
Yeah.
It's an array of objects.
That's right. So even though there's one in it, remember the data type that you're actually working with. I can't actually do what is the content here because I'm doing the dot content on the array, which is not going to do anything for me. I'll need to go into the noTweets, which is the collection or that array-like object. If I go to the first one, it's the actual object. So that's kind of like a tricky question. I try to play Trixies on you. Yeah? Like, got them. And then if I ask for the content, it will actually give it back to me. Cool. So, boop. Now let's actually go into sort of like now writing some code. We've established these relationships. I'm going to walk you through what's going on. So inside the users controller, right? Remember we have get to users, which is going to be what RESTful route. Almost there. Right, we're at the index, right? And that's going to display all of them. As I was doing that, I was waiting for one person to say it, and I was like, it's okay, you can read. We have the RESTful route of users new. If you kind of forget, there's that Restular website that will break down each of the RESTful routes. And then we have the post to users, and that's going to be the one that actually does the creation. So why does the post to users need to do the redirect? Remember the two things that always happen in sort of these controller actions. Inside the controller, all right, you have sort of this action that happens. So inside the post to users, here, something about a model, and then something about a response, right? Those are the two things that are always happening. Inside the create, I must be sort of creating. So I'll do like a user.create. And then if you remember, the post comes from what HTML? A link, a form, a button. Right, it comes from a form, right? And a form will do that post. In that post, it will go to /users, and then it will send over the data from that form. And that comes across as what? Params. And so yesterday, I was kind of hard coding everything, where I was like, oh my God, user, name going to params at a key of name. Oops, boop, boop, boop. What the? That was weird. That was weird. Params at a key of name, and then I was like, great, we can also do the other attribute. But then we realized that if the params, the keys match perfectly, we don't have to do all of that nonsense. We can just simply pass in the params. And then we were able to use the mass assignment, that shortcut, and now it created the user. Once it created the user, what is the response? What should the user see now? And then we determined that I can either show them the show page, or I could show them the index where they can see all of their users, specifically at the bottom, like the brand new one that they just made. And that's why I need to do that redirect. Otherwise, it doesn't send a response. You'll just see a blank white page where in the database the user was created, but there's no response. The user gets nothing back. And you're kind of just like, did something happen? You're like, this is weird. That's like a terrible user experience. So let's actually go inside. Now that I've like basically built all of these routes, let's kind of test them. If I go to /users, this is the models index page. Right? Can anyone walk me through how it got to this sort of view based on the code?
Because you did /users and then I
Right? So because I made a GET request to /users right here, it's going to see, is there one of the routes that match? Luckily for us, it happens to be the first one because it reads top to bottom, left to right. And then what should be happening is some sort of interaction with the model potentially, and then the response. So here inside the index, what do we need again? For the index to show all of my users? We need the instance variable users, and that should be what? How do I actually get all of the users? All right, user.all. Oh, that's aggressive. And now inside this index file, I have access to all the users. So quick one more time, inside the views, specifically in the users folder, in the index file, users folder, index file. This is the models index page, but also, right, I'll just put a quick h2 tag and say all my users, smiley face, followed by bloop. Should I use at users? Do I have access to this? Does this exist? It exists, right? And it's a collection of all my users, right? So I can do .each because it's that collection. Boop, 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 right? And that is going to be a user object that comes in. Bloop, bloop. Do I want to use the equal sign right here?
No.
Right, absolutely not. Get out of here with that. So I can do user.name. Is this going to work? Is this going to come out what I think it's going to do? It's just going to print out exactly what I write. But this, it looks like a Ruby. So I'm going to actually embed that Ruby, make sure I put the p tag in. Bloop, 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 bloop. And now I should actually get my usernames interpolated. Cool. Awesome. So let's take this like one step further. And that is, if we're inside the users controller, why is get users new sort of above the show page? Does anyone remember why we did that? Right, it reads top to bottom. So if I had this above, sort of like this, like a rocket ship, I make a lot of weird noises. You'll know when I'm actually coding at my desk because I'm like, pew, pew, pew. Or if I'm just checking emails, I'm just like. So I have users ID here versus users new that's below. If it's up here, when I try to do a get to user /new, it'll hit this route first. And that's going to be, that's a boo-boo. We don't want to do that. So I've established this user ID. So I can simply go to user /1 or 2, and that gives me what? It'll hit this route followed by this response. So, boop. Okay, just kidding. Boop. This is the show page for an individual instance of your model. Oh wow, these generators are so good. So if I take a look at users show, because that's the response that I'm sending back to the user, take a look at show, I can simply do at user. Does this exist right now? Oh, whoa, embarrassing.
No.
All right, why doesn't it exist?
You can create in the view.
In the view?
Inside of the controller, you need to
Right.
create the instance variable
In the
and then
controller,
to
yeah.
the VRV.
That's exactly correct, right? Inside the controller, I never did that user, right, equals to, now how am I actually getting access to this user?
User.find.
I'm doing like a user.find, and then what am I passing in? ID1?
Oh, or
Params ID.
Why? What is params again here? And where is it coming from? What line of code is this params hash being built from?
The route.
Right, the route that I'm passing in, right? What that namespace right here. And so based on users / whatever I pass in, here I'm going to be passing in 1. It's going to go ahead and try to find user with the ID of 1. So in the show page, I have user, right? I can do something like boop, boop, p tag, and just put user, bang. And we'll just put the handle, right? So if I refresh, I'll actually see, okay, user colon space space, and then we'll just do that. Great. Now, what happens if I do user 10?
Well, the page will show up, but it might just say user colon, right? Or no?
Cool. Does this error make sense to you? Is basically what the question is, right? And so it should, right? Because if we follow the workflow, we have a route, right? We match the route. It's going to go to 10, and then it's going to go, oh, params ID, which is 10. It's going to try to find a user 10. You're like, oh my God, I only have 2 users in my database. Very popular application. And then it's going to break, right? And so there are ways that we can kind of get around this, and that is if sort of like user.find returns like nil or something, then maybe redirect to the index, something like that. And so that's kind of like the idea of how you can kind of like build out features and kind of catch some of these edge cases. So
validation for this sort of thing, or like making sure users aren't putting wrong data, that should happen in the controllers, not in the views.
yes, a lot of your logic in terms of like the model interaction should be inside the controller. And you'll have a lot of validations here. Cool. All right. Sorry, I like lost my train of thought. That was a very good question though. All right, back. So now we actually need to like create this user, find that sort of workflow, and then we'll figure it out. So if I'm trying to create a user, how do I do this post to /users? Do I just somehow put like a post here and that'll work?
No.
Yeah, that's not gonna work. That would be kind of cool though, but that's not gonna work, right? So I actually need to see the form first to take the user input to actually do the creation. So which one is gonna give me or should give me the form to make a new user? Right, this one. So if I do get users new, boop, 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 I have this already, right? Remember the controller sort of generated that for me. If I get an error, it's probably because if I'm just gonna blast this, if I refresh, I should get some sort of error that says no such file or directory, which makes sense because the response that I'm saying is inside the views folder, inside the users folder, I should have a file called new based literally on what I told the code to do. So inside my users, new.html.erb. Great. Let's actually build this out, right? Make a user, like and subscribe, notification bell, right? Let's actually see if that worked. Exactly. What a perfect website. So when I'm taking in this like gets.chomp for the internet, we talked about this already, and that's going to be that form. A lot of you are like trying to get these sort of shortcuts. They come out of the box with Atom, and did it work by the way? I'm sorry. I will spend some time today and figure out how I can get you guys the HTML. You got it working?
Yeah, I have the snippet I shared with everyone.
Well, you wrote it. You wrote this.
No. I literally took the HTML from HTML5, the snippets from that, and then just threw it in the ERB JSON file.
Oof! Bless up. Yes. And you shared that with everybody?
Yeah.
What if you don't have an ERB JSON file? Because I did.
Then you're missing the extension.
Or you just make it the power of development. Yeah, you just make the file. If you guys want, sometime today I will find the time and I'll like either look up a tutorial that someone wrote or I'll like write it out myself. Then you guys follow the step by step to build this. Because I know that this is actually extremely useful. So actually it'll only be useful for like one day more because tomorrow we're going to Rails land and it's going to be great. So maybe not super exciting. What'd you say? You won't need the HTML builders as much when you get to Rails. And when we get to Rails, you'll see why. But the short answer is Rails will build a lot of these things for you. So if I want to build a form for a user, instead of like writing manually the HTML, in Rails I can do something like form for, and then I can pass it in a, but we're gonna get to that later, okay?
Sounds so much
And then it's gonna
better.
build the HTML for you like
Oh, yeah.
magic. Yeah, so back to this form, right? So in the meantime, please marvel and revel at some of this nonsense like this. Input, ooh. Input again, ooh. And then lastly, that one's not as exciting because we've seen it twice already. This one's gonna be the submit because I never want to make that mistake again. It's very embarrassing. Remember, there's a bunch of these what are known as attributes to these HTML tags. So HTML tag is this form that sort of opens and then it closes. Each one of these are known as attributes. So if I put in a value, right, like let's just say hard-coded, that I didn't spell that right, but that's fine. I've already typed in what is hard-coded into this field. But if I wanted to put in something where it's like, hey, you should probably type in a username here, but I don't want that value to persist, does anyone know what that's called?
Ghost value.
A placeholder. So what you'll see is it's a little bit hard to see, but it's kind of grayed out. And if I click it, the value's not actually really there, and once I start typing, it starts disappearing. And that's known as a placeholder. So there's so many different attributes to explore for each individual tag. And so that's just kind of like one of those things that I want to like introduce you to. Yeah. So we have text, right? And we talked about the importance of name. What is the name going to be doing for us as it relates to how the params come across? I want it to match. Yes. Can you be a little bit more specific?
Match the keys.
Yes. Yes. Sorry if that feels a little awkward, but the idea is that like when you're in these technical interviews, you have to be like finishing the sentence in its entirety so that the person that literally I've hung out with you guys for 3 days and I feel like I've gotten to know you fairly well, but you will have just met this person in the interview. You will have exactly 1 minute of meeting them before they're like, cool, great, yeah, my name is Simon. I've got long hair, I wear a hat, I'm very high energy. Great, let's just talk about this whiteboard problem, and like you're being interviewed by this person. And then you'll be asked to kind of like loop through an array or something like that. And you're like, oh, you just, you do the thing with the array. And you're like, right? We all know what you're talking about because we know each other. So that's kind of like why. So if you hear me try to draw it out of you, I'm just trying to like level you up. If you feel like it's uncomfortable, just DM me and be like, Evans, don't do that. I don't like that. I'm just throwing you a bone here. Let's move on with lecture, and I will take that feedback very well. Yeah. So I realized that it didn't sound like I would take it very well, but I really will. Like I'm not gonna just like pick on you. I realize what that sounds like now. I'm not gonna like just cold call. I don't like doing that. So it matches the key in the params, which is like perfect and exactly correct. So what do we want to match with the key in the params for this particular user? Right, so the attributes inside the column, right? We have name, and then we have, oh, handle, yeah. I was like, oh, I forgot. Let's actually put that in. Handle here, and then name. Okay. I think emojis work too, right? Let's get wild. Have you seen,
Oh, yeah.
you guys know how to do this?
Yeah.
All right. Command Control Spacebar will bring up the emojis. So you can put this, oof, look at that, gains. Gains. Look at that. All right. Wow, I build a lot of weird apps. Charizard, Sunshine, fried chicken, tacos. I'm very hungry, apparently. So remember, I'm going to put something in here, right? Bloop, 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 meep, morp. And then my handle, which is like very cool handle. When I hit submit, what will the form actually do? Redirect me, or will it, it's going to post to /index, whatever this action is. So as you start to hear me say controller action, right, it's because it's basically what it is. It's an action. So I have a post, right? If we remember inside our user's controller, is it going to be post to index HTML? What actually should be the route that we're going to be using for creating? Yeah, it's a poster slash user. So how can I adjust my form to do so?
Go to action is slash.
Yeah, so I want to put slash users here, right? So that when I submit this form, will hit that correct controller action to do that logic. So let's actually finish this. I'm going to create my user, and then I'm going to redirect to users. The redirect will be inherently a GET request. Cool. So if I do that, I'm going to have a brand new name. Does anyone want to be a user in this like very good app? Bruce Jr.?
Yeah, just
Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it.
Bruce Jr.? Cool.
I still don't even.
It was named a dog.
He's a dog.
I know, but I was like there during the lecture.
That's
Like,
the
everyone
username.
knows.
He's
Great. The handle will be Daug, because that's how we pronounce that. And then bam, look at that, Bruce Jr. right there. So any questions kind of like how we got to that page from the form? Yeah? All right. That was super easy to make, right? But the problem is now, that's basically like a review of everything. The problem is now, how do we actually create a user that's that's associated with this user? If we very quickly kind of go to the no tweets controller, most of this, again, is kind of built for us. You'll have to build it from scratch in your own applications. But for the purposes here, if I wanted to make a brand new tweet, what route should I go to?
Post. Right?
If I wanted to make a brand new one, what route should you hit?
Well, no, not tweet slash new.
Right? Not tweet slash new, so I can at least see the form. So if I go to not tweets slash new, I get this page, right? Because in my not tweets controller, I have a get to no tweets, not tweet slash new, which gives me inside my not tweet folder, remember that separation of concerns here, in that new. Now the nice thing is that this new, they basically kind of look the same. So inside here, boop, just so there's no confusion, this is for a definitely not tweet. And then just to put it in perspective, we will put a bird in here. Oof, America. Yeah, let's actually refresh. Great. Wow, look at that. So if I submit this form here, even though it is in the not tweet slash new, where will this form submit to? Right, it will post to slash users. Is that really where we want to go though? No, the cool thing that we're starting to realize and see now is that you can have different models, different views, based on the route that you hit, interact with different controllers, right? Where we'll see that application is going to be later on this week and next week, but the idea is there that even though they're siloed, they can interact with each other based on like the form or the route that you force it to go to.
Could you post to multiple routes?
No, you should only be able to hit one route at a time.
Okay.
So I want to actually hit inside my no tweets controller. I want to actually create this thing, right? And that is going to be the post to no tweets route. Oops. So in my new, I'm going to go to definitely not a tweet, so I'm in the right file, and I'm going to post to no tweets. Now, inside the tweet, what are the attributes? I think it was content, and then user ID. Okay. So here's the issue we're kind of running into, and that. Oh yeah, I didn't change the placeholder. Tweet. Sure. And then this is not going to be handled here, but just be like, who is Tauken? Tauken. Right? And there we go. So the placeholders are changed. And if you wanted to change this instead of text, I think what we were getting at earlier is here we can use text area. Ooh. Okay, that didn't make a difference. Usually it's supposed to be like a large box, but okay.
It might just be CSS formatting.
Oh, that's right. So that being said, right, what kind of user experience is this? Like if I'm over here and I'm like talking in and I'm all like, blah, blah, my life is great, much better than yours, Z. Should I have to put in who's talking? I have to disable the autocomplete. Should I have to put in? One day something's gonna bite me in the recording. Cool. So should a user put in the tweet and be like, oh, by the way, I'm user 79, right? Like 1. How am I even supposed to know what my user ID is? What a terrible user experience. What would be a better user experience?
Get rid of that box entirely and use the person that's logged in.
Yeah, you can do that, right? You can use the person that's logged in. So we can kind of do that by manipulating the routes a little bit, by creating another route with like a namespace of user ID, or just in terms of like the form itself and understanding, expanding our ability to be masters of the web. Should a user have to type in what user they are? No, wouldn't it be nice if you could just select who you are from like a drop down? Okay, HTML, drop down. Let's see how this works. Select tag, wow. Let's see what this is. Let's try it ourselves. Oh my goodness, if I have this HTML, it builds this sort of user experience. So wouldn't it be cool if I had Pikachu, well, I spelled that wrong, and I have other Pokemon, because we all know that nobody cares about the other ones, right? Charizard's pretty popular. I spelled that wrong. I'm just making a mess of myself. But look, what I really want is sort of my usernames in here.
Yes.
Pokemon Audi, that's a very popular Pokemon.
Yes,
It's in the original 150. So wouldn't it be nice if I had something like this, instead of a user picking like 1, 2, or 3, it had my username. So I can kind of like select that. Like I'm gonna write a tweet and be like, oh, it was me, your boy, Wangtron, Swag Lord. That's an inside joke from another class. I'm not a swag lord at all. The idea is that inside my application, I don't want the user to hard type user ID, because they're never gonna know their own user ID, right? You have an Instagram account. What is your ID for your Instagram account? Probably in the few thousands, because you were doing it before it was cool, you know? But who knows? So what I wanna do is kind of experiment, and that is, I'm just gonna paste this in like a good developer, and that is, this is what I saw work, this is what I think it does. I'm gonna rip that code, put it in, and I'm gonna test it, understand it, evaluate it, break it, rebuild it as my own. Plagiarism is not a thing in development, and it's kind of wild. Ooh, okay. So, is there a way I can get the users in here? I should do something like @users, but do I have @users here in this new? Okay. What can we do?
You can't do it, that's what I was thinking, is you do like a users each, and then.
I would do like a users each, right? But I don't have users in this view file, and now I'm stuck. Gotta go back to the controller, right? So inside the no tweets controller, I can just delightfully give myself all the users, right? So now inside my new, do I have access to @users? Wow, problem solved by yourself. It's kind of cool, right? So now I have this, right? I have my .each, right? And that's gonna be a user. Bloop. That looked like a Ruby. Let's fix that. Ooh, get rid of that equal sign, right? And so I'm just gonna do this, and I'm gonna put an end. Why do I want the users inside the select tag? Do I want to make a brand new dropdown for each user, or just an option for each user? All right, so where I'm gonna write this code is gonna make a difference. Yeah? What's up?
Why did you get rid of the equal sign?
Oh, because remember, someone want to help out? Or? Yeah, because the equal sign will actually display. And what does the @users each display? It just returns the original array, which is like not what we want to see. But what we actually want to see is inside here, we want to see user maybe .handle. All right, so if we do that, what do we see here?
Missing a do.
Oop, just kidding. I am missing a do. Do. Said doo-doo. All right. Oh my goodness, user.handle. That's not what it is. This looking like a Ruby. Do I want that to display?
Yes.
So I'm going to leave the equal sign in. So if I refresh, I see I don't know, and it seems to build out a lot of these. Oh, that's right, because for each user, I'm building all 4 options. Let's get out of that rubbish. And if I refresh, now I should be able to just get the users in my database. This is a much better user experience, right? Now let's actually see how the params are being handled, right? Because just because it displays well on the page doesn't mean that it's sending the data in the way that we want.
So what I was curious about is then with the input, could you make it so that it doesn't even display, so that the
Oh, we don't need
form
this
would be
anymore.
automatically filled out? So when it would make the post method, I don't know, when it would make the post method, it would be associated with the user?
But then you have to be logged in. I feel like it's a whole different.
Right, the login thing is a whole different thing, which is
Okay.
why we kind of need this drop down. If you're logged in, we'll talk about
Then
sort of
that's
like
a different
access to
thing.
the,
That's a different thing.
Yeah.
Being logged in is,
Yeah.
then you're accessible. And that's
Yeah.
different.
exactly. So, cool, let's actually test these params, right? We know that this is gonna post to no tweets. So into my no tweets controller, I look at post to no tweets. The first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna have to pause that code because I wanna check what those params are and how they're actually coming across. So I'm actually gonna type in my tweet, and that is params, and then we'll put it to Dowd. If I hit submit, it's hanging, which is the right answer. And now I'm actually in the binding. So let's check a look. Let's check a look, embarrassing. Let's take a look at what the params actually come across as. I'm gonna do this a little bit so we can kind of see all 3 screens. If I look at params, right, what are we expecting the params to be? Whoa, that's not the one. No one said anything? Oops.
Hold on.
This one.
Volvo.
That's right. It's actually Volvo, right? The content is params. Why didn't the user who was selected come across as params?
You're not posting.
You don't have a name for you users.
We don't have a name for what these options are. And remember, the name attribute is what comes across as the key. So if there's no name, there should be no key. So what do I want to put? The name inside the option?
Yeah.
Or should I put name inside the select tag that goes through all the options and sends one thing over?
Oh yeah.
The key should not change, just the value based on the option selected.
Yes.
Right? That makes sense? Or
Yeah.
So can you do like
if I put name
method?
equal, right? And this will be user ID. Because that's what we want as the key in the params. So let me do this. Boop, boop.
Wow.
Oh, sorry, I have to check this. Exot. And then all I'm going to do is make another tweet. So good. And now I'm going to put wings. This is your tweet, by the way. If I hit submit, now I want to check those params again. And now I'm seeing user ID come back as Volvo, as somebody very correctly alluded to. So how can I change what Volvo sort of becomes? Right. I can hard code like, oh, I should just put maybe like 1 in here or something.
Do user.id.
But we can actually dive a little bit deeper into what's going on. Let's exit out of here. Okay. That redirect worked too good. So if I open up my DevTools, what I can actually take a look at is if I click this pointer thing, you see it turns blue and highlights. I can actually then scroll over and select something from the HTML and it will zoom into it for me. So for example, if I wanted something about this select and I click it, it will zoom into where it is in the HTML. So let's see what it built for us. In the select, right, which makes so much sense so far, because that's exactly what I wrote for my HTML. The select is not really tricky.
It's interesting that it's a field of inside the form. It's just an additional field. That the input is a field, but then the select is also another field for a form.
That is correct. I mean, that's the way I wrote it, right? Like, if I just take away the spaces.
It's just interesting because I was looking at it and just thought that.
If I open this, look at the values for each one. Row. If I select dog, wings, or I don't know, it's always going to pass in 1. I don't want it to do that. What I want it to do is, based on the user, have that ID get sent over. So I can do user.id. Will that work?
No, because you don't have to.
Yeah, because it's literally going to send the string user ID over. But now, let's take a look. Ooh, spicy. So now I'm going to get the correct user ID based on what the user selects. So now I can actually properly create a tweet with the right user ID and the right content inside my controller. And that's how I can actually create the association, because it's the user ID that is the association between the two objects. So far, so good? All right, don't worry, we're almost there. We're just gonna finish this, and I'm gonna let you party rock. So I need you to rally for like maybe 5, maybe 2 minutes, just 2 minutes.
No, we're like really close, because we have the params.
Yeah, right? We know what the params are already. So here I can simply do node tweet.create, and I can pass in those params. Once that's done, all right, this is the model interaction, and this is the response. And I'm going to redirect to no tweets. So if I refresh this page, okay, I turned off the server, embarrassing. Okay, I'm going to make a tweet, and it's going to be Snoop Doggy Dog. And it's going to go back to the model's index page, no tweets. If I take a look at no tweets, I think dog was 3, right? The third one? Oh, I didn't actually build the show page, embarrassing. But inside the show page, you should build it out, and you'll see the list of tweets. I know that like we're dragging into that 1 hour mark, and you're getting kind of tired. So we can take a break, continue, finish that up, or if you feel like you understand just by like a thumbs up, we can break here. What would you like to do? Break here, finish. Okay.
Wait, I thought a break meant like break, like we're done.
Like break.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's very. The wording was terrible. Thank you for the clarification.
I voted for
Okay. So here are the two options again. Right. Let's zone back in. Great. So the last thing we kind of talked about was the fact that when we did that redirect to the index page of /no-tweets, we wind up getting essentially what I would describe as a very generic page. We actually didn't wind up finishing it. So let's build it out, but with additional functionality. And what I want to start with is actually the show page. So let's do that. In terms of the show page, how can we get access, right? What do we need from the model, and what will be the response for the particular show page?
So, sorry.
It's okay.
I just have my own thought. I wasn't really listening to your question. Sorry.
What is your thought, and then I will just walk us through.
ID in the URL should be the user ID,
Well,
not the tweet ID, because it wants all the users' tweets. Right?
we will get there.
Okay.
We'll get there, right? So for the model here, right, we have tweet equals to tweet.find, and then we're going to pass it in the params that are coming in from the URL. Oh, that's right. Yeah, we're making it really hard for me. Params.id. The idea is that this right here is the show page for the particular tweet. But if we really want to see all of the user's tweets, should we be inside the no tweet controller? If I want to see all of the user's tweets, should I look in the tweet controller, or should I look in the user's controller? The user's controller, right? So if we go to the, actually, I want to build the show page out for a second. We're going to get there, sorry. So no tweet show, inside the views, no tweets, we find that show under no tweets, show, boop. let's actually pull off the details. Now that we have access to it, I can do at tweet.content. And I can say, this is what you are talking about. Right, so I'll drop a little p tag. Oop. If you hold option, I think it goes by word. Ooh, yeah, spicy. So if I go back to the tweets like 3, I think it should be a bunch of gibberish, yeah. That's what we made. So let's take a look at all of the users' tweets. So inside the users controller, right, where should all of the users' tweets be in? The index or in the show? Think about what the index is for the user. The index for the user is all of the users. If I am looking at a particular user, that's where that particular user should have all of their tweets. Right? So remember, the show page is the details, right? The index is sort of like the collection. So if I'm in the user's index, I see every single user listed and no other real details.
Is there not a tweet index?
There is a tweet index, but that's all the tweets in the entire database that aren't specific to any person. And so now you're starting to kind of see what that difference is, right? So if I'm looking at not the index for the user, but the show page for the user, that makes sense. If I'm looking at Steven's particular page, he might have 9 tweets about knitting. If you're looking at my Twitter page, you might have 9 tweets about the benefits and how healthy Red Bull is for you, right? So now that we've identified kind of like what the right page is, let's actually dive into it, right? So it's the show page for the user, and I can see that this is the response. So for users, I'm going to go to the show page. In my show page, I have just the user handle. But what I really also want to see is potentially in like an unordered list, I'm going to make list items. I'm going to make list items for each of the tweets that I have. So how do I have access to that user's tweets? User dot no tweets, right? So do I have access to @user right now already?
Not yet. You haven't put it in the
Ooh. But I like where your head's at because the second you look at the controller, you're like, oh my god, I did this earlier, right? And so that's always like a really good safety check. So @user.no tweets will give me that collection specific to this user. So that look like a Ruby, boop, boop. And then I'm just gonna go .each do boop boop, and that is gonna be the tweet object. So you could see how very quickly, like your skill and mastery with Active Record, it's building on Mod 1, which you very much enjoyed, as I've heard, but in seriousness, ++ to Sean. So if I do tweet, okay, that's not what I want to do. If I do just tweet here, .content, what will display? Literally just this, right? I want to make sure I display using the equal sign and the ice cream cones that embedded Ruby. So how can I actually see the user show page? What would the route be for an individual user?
/user/whatever.
Yes, right? So remember, so my job is to hammer RESTful routing into your brains. So when you hear me say that, it's because like it's a little dicey in the beginning. So user / whatever ID it is. So let's take a look at user 1. Ooh, a no tweet like a no tweet party. Let's take a look at 3. Okay, that was kind of nonsense. Let's actually make some brand new tweets so that we can see a list of them. So we can go to no tweets /new, and let's give Simon some tweets. What do you want to say? Great, that's great. What else? Let's make another one.
Turquoise.
Sure.
Triangle.
Turquoise. Boom. And then lastly, we'll just do one more. Triangle. I have to say, these aren't very in-depth, but there are a lot. So I'm impressed. So if we go back to user /1, which is Simon,
No.
we see all of his tweets, right? Wouldn't it be a really good user experience if I can click on this tweet and then see the details of it? That would be cool, right? Well, we have the power to do so because we know the route to the show page for that particular tweet. All we have to do is create a link to it. Does anyone know how to make a link in HTML? Right, a train, which is pretty reliable.
That's cool.
So if I'm in my user's show page and I'm putting out all the tweets, I want to make this a link. So inside the list item itself, all I have to do is do.
Would you make it inside the list item or outside the list item? Because wouldn't the list item itself be the link?
We can make, I mean, at this point, it's not going to really matter. But if I make this a tag, right?
Yeah.
So here's where it starts. Let me zoom in a little bit. Here's where it sort of starts, right? So boop, boop, boop. All I'm going to do is take this. So I've just used this anchor tag to now make this a link. I can make each one of these go to evanswang.com. Actually, I shouldn't have said that. Don't do that. Don't do that. I want to actually make this a link to somewhere. But where do I want it to link to? That tweet show page. I know if I do slash, okay, just kidding. I don't want to get sued. No tweets. That brings me to the index. Let's do one step at a time. So if I go back and I refresh, you could see that now they're, oh my goodness, they're all links now. And if you really want to go hard in the paint, I'm just going to drop this back here. So I want you to take a look at this bottom left corner. You'll see that the preview to the link is where this will go. All right? And unfortunately, all of them go to slash tweets. What I really want it to go to is the show page. In the same way that we kind of interpolated the ID earlier, what can we do here to have access to that particular tweet's ID? That's where we want it to go, right? Slash tweets slash ID. So it will go where?
Would you do it by namespace, right? You do that at ID, or would you interpolate with Ruby?
I can interpolate with Ruby, right?
Yeah.
So what I want to do is I want to put in this tweet.id. But we all know what's actually going to happen, right? It's just going to do, if I refresh, it's just going to put these two, and we see it,
Yeah. Text.
tweet.id. It's literally the text. But this, just this part, looks like a Ruby. So if we do that, what's going to happen?
Is that considered interpolation?
1, 4, oh, that didn't work. 5, 6. I mean, it did work. I was just hoping it was going to be 1, 2, 3, so then I can sound like the Count from Sesame Street.
Why don't you have to do the hash and curly brackets within the string?
It's a very good question. Remember, if I did something like this, right, and I did tweet.id, let's see what comes up. This is just the string inside the HTML. This whole file is not an RB file. It is sort of like an ERB file, which is HTML with embedded Ruby. Anytime I want to add in Ruby, I need to embed the Ruby with the ice cream cones. This string interpolation, I believe, I don't know if that'll work actually. Let's check. Okay, yeah, I didn't like it. So if I want to actually add any Ruby, I'm going to throw it between the ice cream cones. Or the squids, or the carrots, or whatever you want to call them. Cool?
Would this work if you remove the equal sign? What is that?
Oh, if I remove this? Remember, it's not going to display, right? So it will interpret, but it won't display. So let's save that and refresh and see what actually comes out.
No.
Nothing. But if I drop the equal in, it will actually display. So on refresh, again, I have 1, 4, 5. I did it anyway, huh? If I click them, it will take me to a get to slash node tweets 1, which we just built. And so, bloop, it will change the route. and then it will display the show page for that tweet. Cool. And so that's how the web works. Remember that request response cycle that I told you about. Everything is sort of a request, right? There's a server that kind of handles what's happening in the controller action, and then a response gets sent back. All right. Thanks for sort of taking a break with me, and then like coming back with maximum energy. If there's no other particular questions, that's kind of like what I have for you today. Yeah? Awesome.